Welcome to Food for Thought, a podcast gabfest run a multiracial mix of queer writers gather around the table to talk about sex, identity, culture, what we like to read, and who we like to read. Food for Thought, a moment on the lips, Giardia.
I was ready for like a
You
poem.
had a look on your face too, Teeve. I was like, this is gonna be something. Really a moment.
I'm always is everyone else who listens to this podcast just always so excited to hear what noise Den is gonna make
Yes, 100%.
in the introduction.
There's range, girl. There is a range.
Yeah.
Fran, last time on our intro, you said you wanted to be a couple, third.
I want to be a third.
Yeah, it is. Both when I'm coupled and when I'm not, this is like the ideal.
Yeah, you need to teach me more about this.
I love it, especially when in the couple and you have kind of a consistent third. So it's like the fun of the threesome and all the excitement and the newness, but a little bit. But the consistency, it's easier to have conversations around like prep usage or STIs. It's easier to like you kind of develop a rapport, but it always has that newness.
Yeah.
And I also really like having sort of couple boyfriends where it's like we can all actually go out and get a drink and hang out, and it's actually like we all like each other, and like the sex is just sort of an extension of that, and it feels like a very safe way to have something quasi non-monogamous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that as we said earlier, like I can't do commitment very well. So I love the idea of a third because it's like commitment light, a recurring third. Like they're relying on you to show up when you call. And I love to be told what to do.
And I feel like there is a cap on what I'm expected to give.
Yes.
And I love commitment so much that this is like commitment on top of my commitment. You know what I mean? It's like I love the consistency and the routine.
What do you look for in a third?
You know, there has to be mutual attraction. There has to be sexual compatibility, and I really like it when like we can all hang out, and it feels like you have the newness and the excitement without a lot of the drama and without a lot of the bad type of messiness that can come if like someone's more into one person than the other, or there's like maybe a sexual match but you don't like being around the person that much. It's nice to kind of have a known quantity but like an exciting one. And I also feel like, you know, my partner and I, we haven't yet quite found the exact right person, but we've had a few sort of rotate in and out, and we've gone on couple dates, which I love, you know, with no expectation. Yes, no sex could happen, but you know, we'd all just go out and have a drink and have dinner and hang out, and it's like it's so fun to just be a little flirtatious. It feels like you feel like I'm being bad, but like my boyfriend's right here, and it's just I don't know, it's nice. It's really a simple pleasure.
I also think if people opened up their idea of what commitment could be, there would be less disappointment in relationships. I wonder
so
that
true.
because
That's
like
so
the trap of heterosexual ideals of monogamy. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in polyamory necessarily, but I would like the option to be open. Because if I'm committed to somebody, I would like that commitment to continue. I don't want it to think that like, I don't know. I think a lot of people get in their own heads about monogamy, and that's why they end up breaking up.
Yes, Tommy, say that. Who is having that conversation?
Literally every queer in Brooklyn, Fran.
Literally everybody.
It's
but you know who's not having it? People in Los Angeles.
Oh wow!
Let me tell
Really?
you, I've had so many conversations with gay men. I hear that like open relationships and thirds is like not even an option.
Wow!
Like it's so foreign. The idea of being in an open relationship or having a third is so like outside the realm of possibility. That's a
so
huge
wild.
blanket statement about Los Angeles.
And so
Feel free to
shocking to me.
prove me wrong, but until then,
I also have to say that I don't love the assumption that like polyamory is the only way to do a relationship. There's also like people who are like anyone who's monogamous is like just sort of colonize their desire. It's like people are allowed to do what they like and what makes them happy and what makes their partner happy. It's like, yeah, I do think if people were more honest about all their desires, maybe outside the relationship, there'd be less like cheating and things that happen where there's not
like
honesty and
judgment
but there's judgment in both ways. And it's like, man, life is hard enough. Can't everyone just do what works for them and just leave it at that? Like people are so judgy of other people's relationship choices. I love the consistent third. Huge fan.
I'll just say that I might be about to become a consistent third.
I'm sure you have.
It's people here, y'all know I'm involved with someone who's married, and there's conversations and there's dinners and drink dates, and We'll see. We'll see. Everyone has to be fully comfortable, and fully on board. And
Have they got a finger in?
Not yet. Not yet.
dipstick test?
They got a finger in right now
the dipstick.
as we speak.
But what I can just say about the whole situation is that I used to be someone who was like, I can only be monogamous. And over the last 2 years, the most consistent sort of like lovers that I've had have been people who were in open relationships.
Lovers, you say?
Lovers.
Lovers.
I'll say.
Like a meat lover's pizza?
And I mean, I that is one context in which I do love meat, not pizza, sex. But I would just say that like it's really changed the way I think about desire and my needs and my wants, and I'm so much more open to different kinds of things. And I feel like as long as communication is sort of upfront and clear, it's kind of like the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. If you're a person who wants that, and the people around you are people who want that and can sort of handle that.
Well, that was a little thought process.
A nice little mini thought process to get started. Teebs, get us out of here.
I got you. My name is Tommy Teebs Pico. I'm an Indigenous American poet, screenwriter, TV writer, and I'm pretty sure by the time this episode drops, my episode of Reservation Dogs will have aired. I co-wrote episode 104, What About Your Dad, with Bobby Wilson, and it's out there now. Something I wrote is on TV, bitch.
That's right.
To watch it. I'm Joseph Osmundson, scientist, nonfiction writer, and frankly, I wore a GIMP outfit better than Kim Kardashian.
What's a GIMP outfit?
What? It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. We'll talk about it
Let
later.
it go right over your head, Deb.
I truly don't know.
It's fine. I am Fran. I'm a writer. I'm an editor. And Giardia is nothing to joke about. Okay, Tommy. I'm fed up.
Are you the only one of us who's gotten it?
Are you fed
I
up
cannot
because
be the
of your
only
stomach
one.
issues because of Giardia?
Am I the only one?
Yes.
I've gotten it multiple times.
It's just because you
From
love the
eating
booty.
ass.
You love
and
the booty.
eating
only.
dirty ass.
There's no other reason other than eating
That's
ass.
because you like yourself some disheveled ass twinks.
That's true.
Love a chaotic bottom.
Unemployable.
I love a chaotic bottom. I love a
love a
needy
chaotic
bottom.
I mean, I'm right here, Fran.
Anyways.
I quit. My Uber is 2 minutes away. And I'm Den Michelle, and I'm a reader, a writer, and a former figure skater. And I'm just here to say that trans is beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if one of us was like, no, it's not?
Today, Dennis takes us away in a game. Sorry,
Den.
today, Den takes us away in a game. We cope barely. It's about coping, our show today. We cope barely. And for dessert, Teebs is going to write us a little poem.
Buck, peacock. I'm feeling a little peckish. I think we should start the top of the show with the way any good top should, with our uproarious appetizer segment, Amuse Bouche, and to amuse our bouches, Den, take it away.
Ow, ow, ow. I do. I'm here. I have a game. It's called Homonym. Y'all have heard it before. It is a thought classique. And we are just gonna... Oh, actually, let me explain the game in case you don't know it. Basically, I take several things that sound similar, and we pick what is the gayest.
Hate it.
Homonym.
Homonym.
All right. Okay. Love Victor. Love Simon. Love Actually.
No.
Obviously, Love Actually is the gayest movie. And there's no question. Anybody that has watched either of those other franchises can attest that those are heterosexual cultural
Propaganda.
objects.
Yeah.
It is heterosexual propaganda.
Is anyone in those shows or movies actually gay?
But truly, like, they are, like, straight. Like, both of those actors are straight and played by straight people, and they give straight vibes, and the characters are of the heterosexual imagination.
It is true. I do feel like Laura Linney makes Love Actually queer, and also all of the holiday pageantry.
There are a lot of
queer.
gay people in Love Actually. There's Alan Rickman. All right.
Oh, yes.
I forgot about him.
Emma Thompson gives a gay performance. She talks about
love
Joni
Emma.
Mitchell. Gay.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Olivia Rodrigo, Olivia Pope, Olivia Newton-John.
Okay. Olivia Newton-John
physical,
is pretty
physical.
gay.
She is pretty gay.
Olivia?
She's vintage gay.
I was about to say, who is Olivia Pope? No, Olivia Pope. That's so embarrassing. Have you seen that meme where she's like,
Oh, yes.
"This is so embarrassing."
I mean, the pantsuits and the Prada bags for her.
Yeah, but she is just so aggressively straight.
Yeah,
She just will not stop giving it up to President Daddy.
It's very.
I mean, I would.
It's
Dan.
honestly, the heterosexuality is what got me stop watching the show.
Wow.
I watched 4
Fair.
whole seasons, and I finally couldn't take it anymore.
There's
And
not
it's
enough
funny
queerness
that
in it.
it's the heterosexuality that took you out and not like the increasing stakes of the show. It was
Yes.
like,
I mean, to absurd levels.
yeah, it was like, did his son just get taken out on stage?
Yeah, I was like, what?
The night before the presidential election. Yeah, it's a mess. RuPaul, Rue McClanahan,
Ooh.
Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer.
Oh, it's got to be
Obviously
Rudolph.
Rudolph.
It's got to be. I feel like that nose just has been some places. That nose has seen things.
That nose has had Giardia 3 times.
Oh no!
Such a show off.
Nose
Such a
Giardia.
show
That's
off.
why it's red.
That's why it's permanently red.
Rudolph is canonically a queer story.
Yes.
Like, we can all agree on that. Like,
Yes.
story of not belonging. Everyone else makes fun of him, calls him a faggot. Do you?
That was my favorite part of the story.
Prancer being like, "Shut up, faggot."
And Rudolph
Your
is
name
like,
is Dancer. Where do you get off, Dancer?
Okay, Vixen.
whatever your name is. Donder? Who the fuck is named Donder?
Donder.
Donder ass
Listen, come on.
bitch.
Oh my god.
Wow. Y'all took it places. Prince Harry, Harry Potter, Harry Styles, Harry Buttholes.
Oh.
Oh.
I mean, I think hairy buttholes are queer, not gay. And so I will say
agree.
Harry Styles.
Harry,
the gay.
how about Harry Potter fanfic? There's some very gay Harry Potter fanfic.
I didn't think about that.
The way I would pull my patch to Harry Potter fan fiction.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That got me.
Wow.
That was so good. When I was in 5th grade.
Some things are better left unsaid. I could have left that one to the imagination. That would be
It's
all
so
right.
good.
I did not
It's
engage in
so
Harry
good.
Potter fanfic. I might have to.
There's some
hot.
great bisexual ones. Hermione's hopping.
It's all about
and, like,
Harry.
can
It's
see
all
her
about
topping.
Harry and Draco. It's all about Harry. And Draco.
I like the Harry and Ron ones.
Are there any
You
Harry
would.
and Hagrid?
It's less with Harry and Ron, it's less believable. With Harry and Draco, like, they want to fuck.
They do.
They
do.
do.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah. The amazing thing about fanfic, Den, is that whatever you want to exist, it definitely someone wrote that
It's
on
there.
the internet. Someone wrote that.
You could be like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize there was a erotic fanfic about the giant octopus monster from Star Wars."
Yes,
like,
and
that's like there's everything.
Everything.
They got it all.
I am obsessed with this fan fiction. I'm
Den is hearing about fan fiction for the first time on this show. What is going on?
Is anyone surprised? This is amazing.
Proud of you.
What else is there? Well, okay. I'll ask
Everything you can
there on the internet? What else?
But what else is there fan fiction of? We'll take that conversation offline. That's gonna be for high tops later. Fill me in on the fan fiction. Okay, we're gonna do. All right, I have a few fun ones left.
Yes.
Okay. Leslie Jones, Leslie Jordan, Beverly Leslie.
Who's Beverly Leslie?
Who's Leslie Jones?
They're the same person.
Leslie Jones.
Leslie
So-
Jones plays Beverly Leslie on
Leslie-
Will and Grace.
Oh,
Leslie Jordan. Yeah, Leslie Jones is the comedian.
I see.
Oh yeah. I was getting confused with my Leslies.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
Leslies.
yeah.
Okay, Leslie. I guess the gayest would be. I guess Beverly Leslie is gayest.
I would say that. Yeah.
I think they're tied.
This is a 3-way tie,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
They're
you
all
think?
pretty gay.
And they're all gay in different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because Leslie Jones is all about the gay screaming.
Mm-hmm.
That is. There's a
Especially
lot
when
of
she's
that.
watching the Olympics.
Have you seen her?
watching anything?
True,
Literally
true.
anything.
Her at a fashion show, screaming at the models.
Screaming, work, diva, queen. Just screaming.
She's like falling out of her chair.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
She's the
And same thing when
best.
she was on Drag Race. She was just screaming, be like, "Ow!" Just like you're like, "Are you okay?"
Also, her hair on Drag Race, that giant Diana Ross. Oh, it was. I love her. Leslie, come on our show. Come on our show. Okay. Tommy Teeps
no,
Pico.
you're not doing this.
Tommy Hilfiger.
The straightest person of all time.
Tommy Bahama.
Oh my God.
Hawaiian shirts are gay.
Hawaiian shirts are gay. When I was in high school, I was in Ohio. I thought that my Hawaiian shirt made me identifiably gay.
Okay, wait. Tommy Bahama, and then is that it? All three?
Yeah.
What about also
Tommy
Tom's
Pickles?
shoes?
Oh.
Tommy Pickles. Yes, Tommy Pickles, canonically queer.
Tom's shoes are gay.
Tom's shoes are gay and Christian.
Wait, they're Christian?
Yeah, they donate to like Christian missionaries.
In a good way? Because I just saw a cute pair of heels that I saw, and they were Tom's, and I was like, oh, I might get those.
Tom's heels.
Did Den just ask, are they Christian in a good way? I don't know what that means.
I don't know either.
Anyways, the answer is
God.
Tommy
Look
Hilfiger.
Yes. 100%.
Tommy
agree.
Pico is the most homophobic thing on this.
Yeah.
list.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Tommy Hilfiger, have you seen the new Ivy Park?
Is it
Yes.
The rodeo shit?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
So
yes. The chaps.
good.
The
It's
chaps.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
chaps.
Well, we need chaps. We need chaps.
I actually have chaps in my purse right now because I'm wearing them to the disco party later. Anyways, catch my Insta.
Joseph Osmondson,
Boo.
Joseph Robinette Biden,
Oh my
JoJo.
God. Oh.
I mostly just wanted to say the word Robinette.
I knew that.
The gayest thing on this list is the name Robinette.
Is the name Robinette?
the
It actually
gayest
is.
thing is Den saying Robinette.
Robinette, 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 Robinette.
Oh no, he's here. He has arrived.
And finally, Fran Tirado, Fran Drescher, Fran Leibowitz.
Well, this is a good list of France. I mean,
It's a good list of Frans.
It's a good friend.
Okay, this is
hard. Fran
It's-
Drescher
it's
is canonically queer.
It's Fran Drescher. I know. I think. Well, okay, yeah, she is queer in that she is like a destroy the patriarchy socialist.
Yes.
But I think that Fran Drescher is gayer than me, and Fran Leibowitz obviously hates fags. So,
But like, what gayer thing to do than to hate fags?
That's true, that's true.
She's
That's
grumpy.
gay.
She has very loud opinions
Yeah.
Yes.
that are often wrong, and she hates fags.
She
So
literally hates men in shorts.
like when I think about Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen saying "Shut up, faggot," I hear Fran Leibowitz's
Yes.
voice.
and then
Shut up, faggot.
and then her self-satisfied.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh God, no.
All right, well, that's it for this game. Thanks, girls.
Hi, babies. Den here. If you're feeling depressed or struggling with uncertainty or having difficulty sleeping, BetterHelp offers experienced therapists who can listen and help. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. I started working with a therapist last summer, and it was enormously helpful for me. Everything from thinking through my transition, to thinking through how I wanted to tell people, to thinking through daily microaggressions from folks in my life. I feel like I just discovered therapy, and I never want to give it up ever. Food for Thought is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy, and our listeners get 10% off their first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/food4 and thought spelled THOT. That's betterhelp.com/food4thought spelled THOT. Get matched with a BetterHelp therapist and get started.
It's time we got to the meat of our discussion. The thought process spelled THOT. THOT. And this week, I've got the pepperoni. So we're going to talk about coping mechanisms. As an entree to that, I want to talk about something else. But I just wanted to start off by saying I've operated in my life so much more in survival mode than I have in comfort. And I think because of that, I haven't had a ton of capacity for reflection. There's sometimes been course correction, but I had to live. And so anything that supported me living, I absorbed, and anything that was in contra to that, I let go. It's like, how do I mitigate this trauma, this struggle, this pain, and, keep it hoofing? And as you get older and as you change and evolve, you might find that some of those coping mechanisms have rotted. They stink.
Yeah, they don't work anymore.
And I've thought about it a lot. And my main analogy and the way that I was thinking about, getting rid of these sort of coping mechanisms is almost like having to break up with friends. Like you make like friends you made in high school or friends you made in college to get you through a certain circumstance that you've then had to kind of let go at a certain point, and how awkward and painful that can be.
Yeah.
So as an entree to talking about coping mechanisms, the first thing I would like to ask is, have you done that before? Like, had to break up with a friend or felt a friendship sliding that you had made at a time in your life when you definitely needed that person or people to survive? And then you got older and you were like, I don't need these folks anymore.
So we ended up not breaking up as friends, but actually, the same week, in fact, that I met the three of you, when we were at Tin House in 2016, my best friend from high school, she lives in the Portland area, and we were like going through some shit, and we had really been sort of like off our rhythm for like 3 or 4 years, and it had kind of exploded into this like fight on fucking Facebook, and we just kind of realized we were like not seeing eye to eye. We weren't matching. And by that point, I had already said to like other people that I was close to in my life, some of whom who knew her and knew her sort of well because like she had been my friend for so long. I was like, I don't know if we would, like, if we met today, I don't know that we would be friends. And we kind of got together that week and had a kind of come to Jesus conversation, and we made the conscious decision not to break up as friends and to like work each other back into our lives and rebuild our friendship, which we have done. But it has taken years, and it's taken a lot of learning how to communicate in different ways because we're such different people than we were when we were aligned in everything at like the age of 17, And so that has been an experience that has been with me because I would say that the disintegration was maybe 3 or 4 years of disintegration. And the rebuild has also been about 4 years.
That's exactly what I'm not trying to do. Like, I think that I've gone through the friend breakup or the friendship in general that took 4 years. And I feel like whenever I get the thing that happens where I'm like, oh, that is so fucked up, like I don't think I can call you a friend anymore. That is when I'm just like, I cut and run. I'm not going to try and stretch that out for like 4 years. You know what I mean? And I think that it's too easy to, just as Teeb said, hold on to like your vices and hold on to the things that are like crutches and comfort objects. I used to have a poetry teacher that would talk about crutches, which is something that a lot of writers, have to deal with. What are the devices, the tricks, the metaphors that you employ just a little bit too often? And she says something she was like, we like our crutches like we like the smell of our own poop. And I was like, oh my, I was like, what? I was
That's
like,
really
I like
good, though.
I hate that. I hate
so
it
good.
so much, but also it's like
really true.
But I also feel like sometimes you can be like that with a toxic friend.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever had a serious friend breakup, but I've had a lot of conscious uncouplings and definitely have had friends where I'm like, you are not in this friend space with me anymore. I like have to put you in another place. But I never want to be in a scenario where I can't see someone at a party. / I don't have anybody in my life where if I saw them at a party, I would wig out. But I do. I need to be able to walk up and say, hey, how's it going? And then we keep moving.
I had a friend breakup in my late 20s that was as traumatic as a lot of romantic partnership breakups that I had, and as toxic because the person who I got broken up with, he didn't tell me. He did not tell me we were breaking up. We were breaking up because he had a friend breakup with a mutual friend of ours.
Idiot.
And I had stayed friends with her. And that was the rupture. He was like, I introduced you to her. I'm not friends with her anymore. How dare you still be friends with her? But did not tell me this at all. Was one of my best friends. I mean, it was really, and so what happened was like, we had been like not seeing each. He got really sick also, and my boyfriend at the time lived around the corner from his house, so I would be like, "Hey, do you need me to bring you soup? Like, do you need errands run? Like, can I?" And he would be like, "No." And I just thought, well, he's sick, he's not doing well, maybe he just wants to be on his own. And like 6 months later, I RSVP'd yes to a birthday party of another mutual friend of ours, and he sent me this text being like, "How dare you go to that birthday party that someone invited you to? You know we're not friends anymore. Because you're friends with X person, and now you're trying to be friends with Y person too. And I introduced you to all of these people." And I was like, I had no idea you were mad at me. And he had this whole narrative around when he was sick that like, oh, all of my friends are shitty. None of my friends offered to help me. And I was like, I was right there offering to help you. And it was really, really hurtful. It was like, he was one of my best friends, like a ride or die, like a Judy. We would go out together, but he was like also smart. Like he was like my best New York City friend. I was really betrayed and heartbroken at this breakup, and I tried to mend it. After that time, I said, "Hey, we need to have dinner because there's some stuff going on between us that I don't know about." And we had dinner. And we sort of decided to try to repair. But I noticed after another 6 months or a year, like there was no interaction that I didn't initiate. He wasn't meeting me halfway. And this was the start of my 30s being like, I don't feed relationships that make me feel bad about myself more often than not. And I realized that that's what this relationship was. And I had to, like a breakup, I had to mourn it. I just had to leave it. But I wasn't prepared for how hurtful it was. We don't think about friend breakups being as sort of disruptive to your life and social network as romantic partnerships, but this one totally was. And in part because we had so many mutual friends, and he was so like crazy friend broke up because of like the interactions with our mutual friends. It was just I'm still upset about it. Yeah.
Did you like communicate it with him, or were you able to just kind of pull away without actually having to say anything?
No, at that point, at the point at which like I just stopped, I stopped reaching out.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
I kind of want to get back. So like in that, like on this discussion of like breakups and those conscious uncouplings and falling outs that we have, like in that is a lot of pain. And I totally agree with you, Joe. Like my kind of friend breakups, or the breakups that I had with people that were really like partners that were friends, like those hurt the most. And then we fall into patterned coping behavior and dissociation and all of the things. Like, what are like y'all's best and worst devices, coping mechanisms, tools, bad things?
Klonopin and Chardonnay.
Klonopin, ever heard
I was
of
going to
it?
say, I love to drink. It is what it is.
We love giving bad advice.
You know what I realized as an adult? I joke about this with Drea a lot because we do Scream Queen together. We actually recorded in this room yesterday. And I have this reputation for being a jumpy bitch. Even though like I love scary movies, I'm extremely skittish. Yeah. I can't even have like it's hard to even have somebody put makeup on me because I'm kind of like always like, and I realized that like that is the result of like having to feel like living a childhood on eggshells and having to feel like at any moment, because I was raised on a res and there was like a lot of people on meth. And meth makes people very, very unstable. And you don't know if someone is going to hug you or take a swipe at you. And I think being raised in that, it left a residual skittishness inside of me. So it's like, I expect everything is going to be a threat. Underneath it all, I've gotten a lot better at, living my life and being an adult and being comfortable and living in places where I'm not going to be subjected to violence. But like, it is something that I think we, and especially as queer people, like we kind of get used to this idea that at the end of anything is potentially a threat. Like on the other side of any window, any door, any corner, we're living in the scary movie of our lives.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
And I was thinking about how I had somebody was asking me about the res the other day, and I was talking about the difference between cousins taking shots at you and homophobia. And that my cousins and I would do basically the dozen, just go back and forth, cracking on each other. And it's like anytime somebody called me, I got made fun of for my femininity, my effeminacy, but it never felt like it was homophobic because my cousin would say, fat girl. And I'd be like, well, I hope Hook on Phonics worked for you, you illiterate bitch. Because he had a problem reading. You know what I mean? But that's how we went back and forth with each other. And when we got outside the res on East County, in the place that outside the borderland of the reservation, that's where I felt like when somebody called me a faggot.
You're like, you mean it.
Yeah. Because it felt like inside the res, an insult was a prelude to laughter. Mm-hmm. Outside the res, an insult felt prelude to violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is how I think that's this in such a formative time in my life, how I saw it develop something necrotic inside of me, something self-conscious and self-hating, you know, because I had to be ready to defend myself some way.
You dissociated a lot.
Well,
right?
that's where the coping mechanism came in, that I realized in pandemic was still very much a part of me, because in the absence of being able to get away, I had to get away inside my mind. You know, I didn't have a choice whether or not, and it happened every single day. I get on the bus and they would take me to the school outside the res. And I would feel myself floating away on the bus ride there because I couldn't go anywhere. I had to go to school. Like, I had to be in that situation. I counted down the days until my 18th birthday, bitch. Like, I counted down the days until I was going to be able to graduate from high school and leave that place behind. And it wasn't, in reflection, I wasn't trying to get off the res. I was trying to get out of East County. You know what I mean? And I kind of like, I had entangled those things in my mind. And even now, I mean, presence of mind is so important to me, and it's so important to, and you need it to be doing the jobs that we're doing. You have to be so incredibly present in order to do this job, in order to have conversations with people, and in order to have public conversations with people that people are then going to consume themselves. And I've always said that in order to be a great writer, you have to be an excellent listener. You have to be way better at listening than you are at writing. And I think that I've attributed some of that growth to my ability to let my dissociative tendencies simmer down a little bit, to look at them, to recognize when they want to come up, because especially when it comes to performance, especially when it comes to like stuff like this, like podcasting or those things that I know will be consumed publicly, I feel that dissociative tendency kind of creeping up on me because it's trying to protect me from being hurt. But it's like, no, this is the ticket to my ascension. You know what I mean? And like understanding the difference between those two things, because everything can feel like a threat, but like there's like something about anxiousness and excitement that kind of share a space with each other.
100% share a space. Yeah.
And let me tell you, the bus, a great place to dissociate. One of the top 5 best places to dissociate for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't dissociate. I spiral.
Say more.
I have always been too present. If anything, my issue is being too present in my feelings, and that's why spiraling is a real problem. Like, just the anxiety becomes a feed forward loop, and it just like it goes, and there's no stopping it. And it's just how like learning. It's kind of like the flip side of what you're saying, Teebs, where you have to know where it's coming from, know what it feels like in your body when it starts, and then start to learn tools to take that feeling and do something else with it. Take that feeling and accept it, recognize it, but don't let it feed forward to more and more and more and more.
And a lot of times it is like, this is like, you know, a tried and true like thing that therapists always say is that like sometimes it's like taking that feeling and, you know, molding it. And other times it's like understanding that a lot of times the agony is around something that we think we feel, as opposed to what we actually feel. And I think I personally, like, something that has been really like helpful for me to cope when the weight of the world is too much, or when I'm really frustrated with a situation or a breakup or what have you, is like trying to dig into like what I think I feel or what I think I'm frustrated about, and then being like, what is this actually about? And what do you actually want? I mean, y'all know that like this has been like a very not fun few months for me mental health wise. And like, I as we all know, like, as something that I've talked about on this podcast a lot, is like I'm like addicted to work, and like work is definitely like a coping mechanism. It's something that kind of salves through pain or things that you just don't want to deal with. And I recently made the decision to not work for 2 months and to see what happens.
I
and
am so happy for you.
Yes.
And I like made that intention to be like, I'm going to focus on my writing. I'm going to focus on my me projects, and like, I'm going to invest in myself and be with myself. And I got even more depressed.
Oh,
immediately.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first like week, I was down.
Because you're
And
like, what do I do?
Yeah. And I was like, wait, like what? Like, why? I did this to feel better. Like, why am I feeling this way? And of course, friend of the pod, Chatty Nicholas, told me the thing that, I mean, she's always just says, she's just always knows what to say. And she was just like, well, I mean, you've been self-medicating with work for 30 years or however many years you've been working. You've been self-medicating and avoiding your own problems and using work to like soothe the wound. So of course, the day you quit cold turkey, there's gonna be withdrawal. You're gonna feel like fucking shit. Like, it makes sense. And
It's an
that was
addiction.
like I think it brings it back to where Tommy started us on, and that like we really do love our own pattern behavior.
Yeah.
Or at least we are addicted to our own pattern behavior and addicted to our own like coping mechanisms.
Well,
so it's
it's-
always worth investigating what you do to self.
Yeah, because it's easy to get comfortable there. You know what to expect. Nothing's gonna. The thing is, taking time off to work for yourself, the way that you've worked for other people, will drive you into unexpected territory.
Yep.
And that's the fear.
Yeah.
But again, that's also the ascension.
Yeah.
I remember being like that in my early 20s and I working for so many other people. And it wasn't until I took those 4 months off where I wrote IRL. And I was like, and it was all me.
Yeah.
It wasn't filtered through somebody else. It wasn't somebody else's edits. It wasn't for somebody else's project. It wasn't for somebody else's like website or whatever. It was all me. And that was scary because it came out and you see yourself and you see like, not just the places that you want to see from. It's not just your living room mirror. You know what I mean? Like you see all the angles. You're like, damn, I didn't know it looked like that from down there.
I think, Fran, your point is so important that when you try to step away from your coping mechanisms, there's going to be a lot of pain. Like there, and it's so
You're gonna want to
easy-
go right back.
and that's fine. And sometimes you will go right back. But I think it's accepting that process, acknowledging that there will be pain, and trying to. My therapist is always like, sit in and move through. Don't be so avoidant with it. But it's also it's not like you have to do it tomorrow. It's not like you have to do it cold turkey. It's like it's going to be a lifelong journey, and there's going to be times when you cannot do it. And that's fine. It is fine that there are times when you have no space for that additional pain and suffering in your life. And there are going to be times when you're going to choose it. And I think that like being able to choose when you're going to approach it and when you're going to sit in it and move through it, and what that might give you, like Tommy is saying, what that might give your creative work, what that might give your capacity for relationships, for friendships, for romantic partnerships that you might not have in the more coping space, but also just like loving on yourself and accepting that it's a process. There's no arrival.
Yeah.
Like
there's no rival.
There's no healthy in a world as ours is. It's just it's coping, doing the best we can, but in a way that tries to allow for creative possibility, for creative joy between people, for deep and loving relationships.
And loving on yourself is so important if you go back to your vice, don't punish yourself. for that.
Exactly.
Like that's just that's a vicious cycle. Just be like,
Exactly.
okay, I did that. I needed that maybe. I'm going to try again tomorrow.
There's a definite tendency to slip back into those, but also for you, because you're diving into like creative work too. And so there's a whole nother sort of level of like turbulence that can come with that too, like even separate from the coping. So that's like twofold and super intense, but also like what you get out of it, I feel like is so rewarding.
Oh my God, so much more rewarding than anything else.
Yeah. And that's-
Any other thing. No
Yeah.
other assignment for another person is going to give you the satisfaction that you give yourself working on your own
Of
shit.
your own
but
shit.
but the thing that you also experience when you get rid of these coping mechanisms, however necrotic they may be, you're gonna be grieving them. You know, grief is such a huge part of it. It's complicated and it doesn't present itself immediately as such, but it is it's a presence that you've held close to you that you've taken away.
It's sort of like deferred grief. Like you couldn't couldn't grieve as a child. You did not have the capacity to deal with the pain at that point. And so the dissociation or whatever the coping is like, well, this has to wait. This has to wait till later. And then we have a choice around when we pick that up and when we actually allow that feeling to come in and see what's on the other side of that feeling.
Because it's one of those things, you know, when you get to this part in a writing project or whatever, where you're like, before the initial edits, you're like, I'll get to that later.
Exactly.
Later on in the writing process. Yeah, I'll get to that later. I'll figure that out later. Well, it's later.
It's later. Let me tell you, it's tomorrow.
I was talking to my therapist about this because the thing that I have to address in my life is my insomnia. It rules everything. And I've been in denial of it for so long. And I was like, Dr. John, this is a Thursday problem, and today's Thursday.
Yeah.
We need to deal with this. Because in a month, I might be on set.
Yeah.
And I'll need to be able to sleep and wake up at a certain time. And I'll need to be in front of cameras, Dr. John.
And those hours are long.
You know, so this is a Thursday problem, and it's Thursday, bitch.
It is Thursday, bitch. Defer it no longer. It is Tuesday. Yeah, that is. But I think that's it. And it's when we accept our problems for what they are, that gives us the possibility of seeing the other side of them. And also, I've struggled with insomnia my whole life. I will always struggle with insomnia. Always. I accept that. But it also allows me to figure out healthy coping management to try to have it be a smaller part of my life.
Yeah. Because I don't want it to feel like, punishment. You know, because not being able to sleep, especially with all of these motherfucking articles that come out like, well, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to die. And it's like, you're acting like it's my fault that I can't sleep. What the fuck, NPR? Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, NPR.
Also, we're all going to die anyway. Life is temporary.
Death,
so
welcome.
Death is upon us. My whole thing is, and you all kind of know that, like, I feel like I perform a lot of extroversion, but in fact, I'm a pretty introverted person. And for me, like, the first step in me coping with anything is privacy.
Remove.
It is absolute remove. I have to extract myself from the situation or from the world and put myself in my own quiet place. And then I have my routines, I have my things. But I have to be by myself and have no one else around in order for me to face what is going on, what I'm doing, what I'm struggling with. And I used to be really proud of that practice because I felt like, one, I was able to take care of myself, which was really important to me. And two, that I was not a burden on anyone else, that my emotional care was no one else's problem or responsibility. And when I was really young, I just had a lot of pride in that. And I recently watched like a Tabitha Brown like video, and she sort of said something sort of flippantly that I think maybe she says at the end of a lot of videos, where she's like, if you can't have a good day, like, don't ruin someone else's day. And that was kind of how I thought about a lot of these things. But one of the things that I've learned in the last few years, partly through therapy, partly through the three of you, is that in fact, if I can't let anyone see what I'm struggling with or what I'm dealing with, then they can't help me. Mm-hmm. They don't know what's going on behind the scene. Mm-hmm. And then I can spiral. Mm-hmm. And so it's like becoming this thing where, like, I'm having to figure out how I can cope healthily and give myself that space, because I need that space to go there.
Yeah.
I need that privacy. But then how do I come out of it so that I can move forward? And excuse me, one of the ways that this was like most sort of active for me even was just last year when I started working with my therapist, and I sought her out because I was like, I think maybe I'm trans and I think I have to deal with this. And in our first session, I was like, I think maybe I'm trans, but I also need to give myself the space for the possibility that I might accept myself as trans, but never transition and never tell anyone publicly.
Wow.
And I just had to say that, and I had to have her allow that in order for me to actually dive in and face myself. And giving myself the freedom to have that privacy was the first time that I was like, okay, now I'm not scared to like actually address this, to name this, to accept this, to explore what it looks like if I don't keep this to myself for the rest of my life. But also, I can move forward and feel like I have agency in how I want to move forward. And that was really important for me. So it's like, again, it's like that finding that private place for me, but then being able to move out. And that's what I was doing by finding therapy, by seeking therapy, and by like talking to my therapist. She was the first person where I was like, I have that space.
The what you talk about though is the exact reason why I'm terrible in a romantic relationship.
I was just going to say,
You know, because I'm like, you need to figure out everything without me saying anything to you. That's how I operate, and then they just piss me off when they can't read my mind.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so interesting, Den, because it sounds like you're opening up to the possibility of intimacy, really, because it's not, you know, yeah, it's great not to be a burden on other people, but if you can't share yourself when you're coping with something with anyone else, well, you're not going to be able to share yourself with anyone else because there will be periods of life when you are coping with something. So, you know, I'm so proud, and I think, you know, therapy is a really special space because it's both private and public. You share something out loud with another human, but it stays in that locked room where you are supposed to work through private things together with someone. I think that models really beautifully intimacy that you can build with other human beings outside of that room as well, that there are people and rooms that are safe enough to be our most damaged, fucked up, unsure selves, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, so true. I think we often like think that we have to have all the answers with this stuff, but there just needs to be more ways wherein we cannot know, and that's okay.
Yeah, and safe spaces. And y'all have provided that for me at different points through this, and like basically we're telling you all, go find friends.
Go find friends.
Cope with friends.
Spiral.
I'm feeling full, but like I could fit one more thing inside of me. Den knows how I feel.
Oh, yeah.
And this week...
That one sounded demented. That sounded like a burp. No, we're going.
No, it was kind of like sexy dying animal.
Dying animal, but make it fashion.
Oh my God. You know, it's fine. We have so many moments.
Oh God.
So I want to talk about, here's the thing. I haven't written a poem in a very long time. It was something that was my constant companion for decades of my life, and I find myself without it any longer. And I also haven't really read very much, and I've been working in a job. TV writing, there's almost no writing a part of it. Most of it is being with other people in a room.
So funny. Yeah, it's true.
And there's only maybe 2 weeks out of the whole year where you go off and write your episode. But other than that, you're just bullshitting. And so I've kind of felt like, I'm like, is my writing atrophying because it's not a daily practice anymore? It has been a daily practice for so long. But then I found myself getting into, in the absence of being able to write poetry, I started to read it again. And I'm really excited. There are a couple of debut collections out now. One that just came out, one that came out a while ago. The first one is Negotiations by Destiny O. Birdsong. Came out on Tin House. I felt like I was really paying it forward because Morgan Parker had forwarded my manuscript to the editor at Tin House when I was looking for a publisher.
For Nature Poem.
For Nature Poem, yes. And I was able to do that with Destiny's manuscript. I gave it to Tin House to be like, if you want this, and it would be in your best interest to want this, but you know, this is there. And so I was able to help introduce Destiny to that publisher, which it has like, you know, no bearing on my love of the book. But it's so the Negotiations, I'm just going to read the back cover copy, but what makes a self? In her remarkable debut collection of poems, Destiny O. Birdsong writes fearlessly towards this question. Laced with ratchetry, yet hungering for its own respectability, Negotiations is about what it means to live in this America, about Cardi B and top-tier journal publications, about autoimmune disease and the speaker's intense hunger for her own body. A surprise of self-love in the aftermath of both assault and diagnosis. It's a series of love letters to Black women who are often singled out for abuse and assault, silence and tokenism, fetishization and cultural appropriation in ways that throw the rock yet hide the hand. It is a book about tenderness and an indictment of people and systems that attempt to narrow Black women's lives, their power. But it is also an examination of complicity, both a narrative and a black box warning for a particular kind of self-healing that requires recognizing culpability when and where it exists. So NBD, but it's also just it's so beautifully readable. You know, it's almost like it's like you don't even have a choice. When you open up that book, you're going to read the whole thing. Her work is addictive in that way.
Ooh,
you know, when
I
you just get like a good writer who just like they're like it's like a buzzing, fuzzy feeling inside of you when you read their work because they're just picking all the right words.
Yeah.
The second book is another debut collection by this writer Ariana Brown called We Are Owed. I first encountered Ariana's work, I think 2015. I was writing junk. I was in Austin, Texas for MLA with my friend Roy. And I was trying to introduce various academics to my work. And this is for all you writers, you young writers out there who are getting your first novels and your first poetry books and shit published. Get them adopted in courses. Because if you get English teachers to teach your books, you will have a new crop of kids every semester and they will pay you to take you out there and to meet them and to get money.
They buy books too.
Yeah.
It's like a win-win-win.
Yeah. So I would recommend talking to the nerds.
Yeah.
Talking
them
to
nerds.
the nerds.
Why did you point at me when you said that, Tommy?
It was more of a vague gesture to
Some of these.
the room.
And I was in Austin, and I met a bunch of people there. Cam Awkward Rich and Sam Sachs and Ariana was one of them. We all read together in Austin, and she's one of those people who I pride myself on being a great orator of my own work. Bitch, Ariana is on another level. She's one of those people where you like. There's some people whose books you can read and you can read out loud. And then some of them where you're just like, I'm going to let this exist in my mind because I know how she would read it. And I don't want to disrespect this work by trying to put it in my own mouth.
The only thing you won't put in your own mouth.
Nope. The only, and it's like only a few people. I feel like Dinez is like that. You know, it's just like, I'm going to let this be its own thing.
Yeah.
Because I know how Dinez would read this and it sounds great in my head. And Ariana is one of those people. So We Are Owned is a debut poetry collection of Ariana Brown exploring Black relationality in Mexican and Mexican American spaces. Through poems about the author's childhood in Texas and a trip to Mexico as an adult, Brown interrogates the accepted origin stories of Mexican identity. We Are Owed asks the reader to develop a Black consciousness by rejecting U.S., Chicano, and Mexican nationalism and confronting anti-Black erasure and empire building. As Brown searches for other Black kinfolk in the same spaces through which she moves, her experiences of Blackness are placed in conversation with the histories of formerly enslaved Africans in Texas and Mexico. There's just so much about her work and her voice and her writing that has that propulsive freshness to it.
Yeah.
You're just like somebody who's so obviously at the peak, or I wouldn't say at the peak because she just there's an ascension, but there's a momentum to her writing where you're like, you are a truth seeker. Not just a writer. This is it's not like this writing lives in a world of its own. This writing lives in this world and it pulls you into it. It both encompasses the world and remakes it, you know? And I just find it to be like Destiny's so incredibly readable. Where you're just like, these words in somebody else's pen would feel they wouldn't have this energy to them, you know? And anytime that when you read it and it's just like, oh, this wants to be spoken out loud, you know, this wants to be in the world. Yeah, I love it. And she has such a distinctive voice and and such a lovely person as well. Yeah.
I can't wait to pick it up.
Yeah. So We
Pick
Are
both of
Owed
them up.
and the Negotiations. Pick them up wherever. Well, not on Amazon, but by your local bookstore, indiebound.com, whatever. Just not Amazon.
Not Amazon.
Not Amazon.
This episode of Food for Thought is made possible by the generous, unequivocal support of Rosé and our home at Stitcher. Our producer is the Rihanna of the podcast world, Alexandra De Palma. Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or Joe Goes Vegan. And imagine those farts.
Oh my God.
Dear. No.
Inventive.
My name is Tommy Teebs Pico. You can find me at Hey Teebs, HeyTeebs, on Instagram because I quit Twitter.
You can. I'm Joseph Osmondson. You can find me at www.josephosmondson.com.
I'm Fran. You can find me at Fran Squish Co. on all social media and find my newsletter in my bio as well.
And I'm Den Michelle, and you can find me at the Den Michelle on Instagram and Twitter.
Find us on Instagram. It's Gay Sluts Who Rate or Gay Sluts Horror, however you decide to pronounce that. And join us on Facebook and Twitter at Food for Thought Pod. And finally, send your questions, thoughts, concerns, and dick pics to thoughts at foodforthoughtpodcast.com. As always, that's food, the number 4, and thought spelled how?
THOT. Wow, that harmonizing, y'all. Beautiful.
Just call me